2, 1.
Good
Go.
afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's session, which is going to be a lovely poetry session with two good friends of mine, Richard Harris and Ray Douglas. So basically, they're going to do a session each, approximately 20 to 30 minutes each, and anybody can actually ask any questions if they wish, or if you know of any of their poems and they haven't read them out, you can always suggest, and I'm sure they might be able to find in time to do a repertoire afterwards. So I'm delighted they're both joining us this afternoon. I'm sure this is going to be an excellent hour or so of good creative poetry. So I think Richard's going to go first. So thank you both for coming, and looking forward to this. So over to Richard.
Hi, well, it's lovely to be back at the Derwent Valley Festival, and I've been there in person last year, which was lovely in a library, and before that it was virtual, wasn't it? And who knew that virtual was coming back? So I'm going to start with a poem because we've had lots of problems regarding technology and getting us onto this event, and in particular me. I think that this is a suitable poem to start with, and it's called Who Would Know? I don't understand science. Physics and chemistry are alien to me. I can't understand how I can Skype Australia, talk to America. There's so much I don't comprehend. I think my computer has an angry elf inside who hates me and makes it crash. Who thought to take some sand, heat it intensely, and add limestone, and then make something opaque? Who then thought to flatten it, or blow it into shapes and make glass? I can imagine primitive man seeing a potato plant and nibbling the green top, like he would eat berries and leaves, but who thought to dig it up, something that looks like a rock, throw it into a fire, bake it, and then eat it? Who looked at a sheep, saw the dirty, matted, straggled coat, and thought, let's cut it off, wash it, card it, weave it, spin it, make yarn and knit it, and then wear it? I don't know the answers, and my brain does not comprehend these things, but I'm very glad that other folks' brains can. And it just seems so appropriate because there's definitely been some damn elf or pixie in my machine over the last 2 days. Richard and I struggled for half an hour yesterday while it fought us. But anyway, we got going today. Now, a recent one, we went on a holiday. We actually went on a holiday only to little Lincolnshire villages like Alford and Spilsby. And so many shops had closed down and, of course, have become charity shops. So we went into one. And this is the life cycle of an egg cup. I was made in 72, told I was the bee's knees, the new invention, a discovery. I was melamine, a very posh sort of plastic, a new miracle kind. I would solve the problems of humankind. I would not wear out, could be used daily forever. I was moulded into a dish with an indent. I felt confused. There were 6 of us, siblings, placed in a box so inferior. Cardboard, not plastic at all. The box said I was made in France. Now that was impressive. I was told I was an egg cup. Plastic was lovely. Plastic was great. Plastic would not rot or biodegrade. Went on display in a shop and was bought straight away. Taken home by a lovely young woman, excited at the thought of my lively life. Then darkness seemed to stay in the drawer forever. One day there was a bright light blazing away. Another young woman opened the drawer, took out the box, opened it and looked in. God, look at this old plastic crap. Gran would buy out, she said. Plastic crap? Oh no, that can't be. I mean, plastic is revered. A great invention. I'm so proud of that. Charity shop, said the young woman, and threw us onto a pile. God, I wish they'd never invented it. It's destroying the planet. Oh no, I thought that can't be. So off in a black bag to the charity shop in a very long time on a shelf, then picked up and bought by a remarkably young-looking, mature lady. The wife, she made me change that line. I'll get used now, I thought. Back to a place they called a caravan. The man with her said, I'll have a Google, see if it's worth a bit. It's 50 years old and it's still in its box. The box is perfect and intact. That's always important, you know. Oh my, to think of that theme. Fury, a cardboard box. Has to be perfect and is important. Who would have expected that? Nope, he said, it's only about 10 quid. We'll use them ourselves tomorrow. I got so excited, and the next day had a hot egg placed in me. I'm as happy as anything to be used as I should be. So maybe cardboard is not so great after all, because they threw the box I'd lived in so long, threw it away in a bin. They put it to recycle, so I suppose it will live on. Maybe they're wrong about plastic. Maybe it's great after all. I hope so much they're wrong. I don't want the planet destroyed. If plastic pollutes, maybe I'm wrong in my pride. Then a postscript. Ooh, I was using the yolk was runny and warm. I was taken home and placed in a dishwasher. It was lovely. So now I will never again be forlorn. And that came out of just buying some egg cups, which is really quite amusing. I couldn't believe I was writing the life story of an egg cup. But then there you go. Now, some friends of mine are real hippy, dippy, lovey-dovey, wonderful people. Love them to bits. And this story is about their community farm that they run. And I've Disneyfied it slightly at the beginning, but the rest is completely true. And it's the escape of the bald hen. She was in a sorry state, was number 2, 3, 4. She had no name, just a ring on her leg. Was quite bald, her feathers were falling out, her tail was sparse, as were her wings. She was in a cage. She planned a breakout, a great escape, and pecked at the wood by the lock. She waited till a kindly-looking man came past and pulled out the last bit, just jumped right out and followed him. As fast as her legs could go, she clucked around his feet, and he did see her and picked her up and stroked her lightly. So gentle was he. He had thick hair, all hanging down, and such kind eyes. She was so glad to go with him. She knew she would be safe. He took her home and handed her to a lady with such love in her heart. She knew that she would now be safe. And she wandered about their garden free. She made friends with the other hens, was even given a bestie who would show her around and make sure she was safe. She found a home at last. She had a happy, stress-free life, scratching in the yard. Every time she produced an egg, it popped right out on the grass. And because she had had things so hard, but that was in the past, and her sad life had been so fickle, the kind lady named her Pickle. Months went by and Pickle grew plump. Her feathers returned and she looked great. Her life was happy indeed. She became queen of the roost. And blessed the day that she was found. And it was fun because I did an event at this community garden centre recently, and people could see Pickle. And so that's really a lovely thing. And she has thrived. It just shows that a battery hen can, in actual fact, survive. Now I've got a little one which comes out sort of twice a year, and you'll see why. Because there's 2 festivals that it involves. And it's quite current at the moment. It's called A Sad Tale of Woe. I was so excited. I started as a sack, but now my life is blighted. Now everything's off track. They gave me arms and legs. They stuffed my sack with straw. They made my fingers with pegs. I was so proud I became a bore. Boasted of how fine I looked. My trousers seemed so grand on my appearance, I was hooked. But I stood not on rock, but sand. For I was hoping to be a scarecrow, standing proud in a field, but my fate has been a real blow. And to my future I yield. I have found out what that is, and it's not good. Oh my, for sadly I have found out. Gee whiz, my name is Guy. To be taken to a farmer's field and placed upon a pyre, that is my fate, to which I yield. To be set on fire. And it comes out every bonfires night and also in the middle of summer. We've got a scarecrow trail here. I've just done one called Pear Pull Haze. I went to a tabletop sale when we were allowed to wander around, and there was the most hideous three-piece ladies' clothes suit with a horrible hat. And it was £3, and so I knocked her down to £2. And she said, "I do hope your wife loves these clothes." And I thought, I do hope you don't come on my scarecrow trail, because that's what it was for. And there you go. And the whole people say the word purple, Pear Pull. So I called her Pear Pull, spelt like that. Then I've got a little one that I rather like, and I won a prize for it. So it's just a tiny one. So I'm going to finish off this section, and then Ray's going to do 20 minutes. So that's fine. And this was, I used to go to an event where they suggested a word, and the word this time was shadow. So you had to write a poem involving shadow. And this is what I came up with. The shadow box. As she lay dying, she looked up and saw the shadow box of her life, the little things that mattered, the first ornament her boy had made at school, a souvenir from the seaside, tiny, shiny things, nothing of value. Her life had been good and long. She had memories to look back on. She sighed and breathed her last. Time stood still, then the house was cleared. Memories grew. And the shadow box, sadly, on a bonfire, smouldering, then gone. Over to Ray, who I've met on Zoom in the last year, and he's the most amazing poet, and it's a great pleasure to ask him to be here with me today. And he doesn't do praise well, so please do all put lovely, lovely comments in any chat.
Okay, I think am I on screen? I'm not sure. Well, thank you very much, Richard. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be alongside you. Thank you for the invite to other Richard, or Richard the First, as I like to call him. We'll call Richard the Second for now. Thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. I write poems. I write them for kids. So I've self-published a couple of books. So there's this one here, which is The Silly Sausage Saga, and then the follow-up, which was Lucy the Two Fairies Last Chance. Quite a lengthy title, had to change it. Something involving Sandy Toksvig, but we won't go into that. Anyway, I thought I'd read a bunch of poems for you. Try and fill 20 minutes, see how much we can get in, have a bit of fun. So I've got 3 poems which are all connected by the theme of sport. Okay, this is the first one. It's called If Aliens Played Football. If aliens played football, would they be any good? With extra feet and longer legs, you get the feeling that they would. For sure, they can run faster and kick the ball much harder too. And with all those eyes, it's certain they get a better point of view. If it's true, like in the movies, that they can read each other's thoughts, which can really help in football and lots of other sports, because then they can be silent, but tell each other how to play instead of shouting loudly and giving the game away. I hope if aliens do play football, they don't have extra feet. Their legs are short, their eyesight's bad, so that they're easy to defeat. I hope their goalkeeper is rubbish, and it cannot even catch, especially since coach said, we're playing them next match. there we go. There's a little visual there of what an alien might look like on a football field. Okay. This next one's called Here We Go, and it's written from the point of view of an article of clothing. You'll work out which article of clothing that is by the end, I would imagine. Well, here we go, been put on again. Only get worn every now, every then. There must be a reason, there must be a match. It's the only occasion when I leave my patch. I never get washed, don't even get rinsed, because I've got magical powers, at least he's convinced. I'm baggy and grubby, I'm unpicked at the seam, but off we both go, supporting the team. All the jumping and bouncing, the hot, sweaty crowd, just adds to my problems for crying out loud. The stress takes its toll each minute, both halves. I get no fresh air at all, unlike those waving scarves. The team, they play dreadful. No style, grace or gloss. And at the end of the match, it's put down as a loss. And he's angry, he's moaning, recalling the game. And the worst thing about it, well, he thinks I'm to blame. It's your fault, you loser. He raves and he rants. And I say, oh, grow up. There's no such thing as lucky pants. There we go. Let's have a little bit of a wet the old whistle. This next one is a book I've got coming out soon, I hope, fingers crossed, about animals doing different sports. So here we go, continuing the theme of sports, a little bit of Olympic in this one. It's about 4 penguins. Slipping and sliding and falling around, hardly surprising with ice on the ground. At the top of the track, assemble the team. Time to achieve their Olympic dream. 4 penguins all ready and raring to go. Been training forever, a lifetime in the snow. Off they set running with the klaxon is heard. The first before second and then the fourth after third. Head first on their bellies as left-right they swerve. With perfect skidding they manage each curve. Faster and faster they whiz down the course, moving as one unstoppable force. It's their quickest time ever, their personal best. Surely they must be ahead of the rest. Whooping and clapping, all 4 filled with pride. But with no bobsleigh in sight, they get disqualified. So there we go. There's the sporty ones. Moving on ever so swiftly. These ones are connected very loosely around the theme of travel. This one's called Globe-Trotting. Tipperary, Timbuktu, Mid-Glamorgan, Kathmandu, Northwest China, South Peru. Lots to see, lots to do. Johannesburg, Istanbul, New South Wales, Western Hull, Little Bighorn, Sitting Bull. Days kept busy, days packed full. Bratislava, Rome, Kuwait, Atlantic Ocean, River Plate, Bollywood, Hollywood, Golden Gate. Set off early, stay till late. New England, Hampshire, Mexico, Bangkok, Greenland, Tokyo, Glasgow, Moscow, Old Cairo. Pack your bags, it's off we go. Okay. Now, I did say very loosely connected to travel and transport. This one's a bit more transport. It's called Never. You should never pick your nose walking in the street. It's not a good impression for the people you could meet. You should never pick your nose when you're on the bus. Others will point and stare, which can only cause a fuss. You should never pick your nose even on the train. Passengers won't like that, and they will all complain. You should never pick your nose if you're on a boat. The captain could throw you off and then far away you'd float. You should never pick your nose whilst riding on a bike. Keep both hands on the bars to go as fast as you like. And you should never pick your nose, especially in a car, because when the driver hits a bump, your finger goes too far. There we go. Okay, this one's called Sailed Away. It's a funny little story. A funny little man had a funny little plan. He was going to sail around the world inside his bath. On a bright and cheery day, in a bright and cheery way, he took a globe and with a pen, he drew his path. Then the funny little man with a funny little plan removed his bath from his house but left the taps. Had a great big massive snack, grabbed a great big massive pack and stuffed in lots of useful things, including maps. Next, the funny little man with a funny little plan made his way right through the city to the coast. After doing all the walking, after doing all the talking, he was not quite nearly ready, but almost. Then the funny little man with the funny little plan sat inside his bath, all set to sail, with no more thoughts for thinking and no more thoughts of sinking. Time to know, would he float or would he fail? Then the funny little man with the funny little plan crossed his fingers, held his breath and counted 3. With a sudden forceful push came a sudden forceful whoosh, and he was well and truly sailing out to sea. So now the funny little man who had the funny little plan will sail the oceans forever and a day. No one ever knew his name. No one ever knew his game. That funny little sailor in a bath who sailed away. Oh, there we go. Okay, these next ones, 3 of them are connected by some kind of mistake. Very tenuous link, I think you'll agree. This first one's called Vision. I actually wrote it last year for National Poetry Day because it was the theme was vision. It took me a while to work out. Last year was 2020. 2020, yeah, okay. I didn't get it. But anyway. Vision. Sometimes I look, but I can't see the things which are in front of me. I blink my eyes, I rub them too. I try to change my point of view. I do my best to see what's there. I focus hard, I glare and stare, but all I see, a furry mess, nothing more than blurriness. I cannot see beyond my nose. Don't even try to spot my toes. From time to time, I make mistakes. I thought those cats were roller skates. I need my vision, I want my sight, but I'm lucky. Yes, that's right, because soon the problem's been and gone. Once I put my glasses on. There we go. Okay. Okay. Next one is called Cardboard Pet. There is a man I've never met who has a special cardboard pet. Not a puppy, not a kitten. Nonetheless, the man is smitten. He takes his pet on big long walks. He imagines that it talks. He feeds the pet on shredded paper, which leads to a nasty vapor. But then one day the news was sad. The weather, well, it turned out bad. Windy, rainy, stormy, foggy. That cardboard pet, all mushed and soggy. Here's quite a recent one that I wrote just the other day, actually. It's called Grandson Mark. This was written on a prompt from Ross Punter. I think Ross might be watching. I might watch later. Saying something that you believed when you were a kid, and something I believed as a kid is kind of the essence of this. So here we go. He did not believe the earth was flat, far too smart to fall for that. He did not believe the moon was cheese, saw through that with simple ease. He did not believe in ghosts and ghouls, left all that to silly fools. He did not believe in imps and sprites, goblins, fairies, troglodytes. Yet he believed when Grandad Reg spoke about that magic veg, which made him super, smashing great. Sorry. Yet he believed when Grandad Reg spoke about that magic veg, those mighty carrots on his plate, which made him super, smashing great. Eat those carrots by the bunch, gobble, nibble, and chew and crunch, said Grandad Reg to grandson Mark. Then you'll see perfect in the dark. Mark, whilst playing out one night, set out to prove his granddad right. He took off his trusted specs and jumped upon his BMX. He cycled quickly round the park. Yes, you've guessed it, after dark. But grandson Mark just could not see that great big massive chestnut tree. So there we go. I think I might be able to squeeze another couple of little sets in. We'll go slightly more serious, I think, and then we'll end daft. Okay. So these are 3 poems which are all connected in some way. The way I've written them, they're connected, and they're about fitting in. They're about telling kids it's okay to be different because we're all the same, even if we are different, kind of thing. This one, though, was inspired by the words of Caroline Flack. Yeah, it's called Be Kind. From time to time, do you see online that people have said something cruel? What would you do if said about you? Get angry and feel like a fool? Are you concerned now that you've learned that others can choose to be mean? Bullies don't care when a selfie you share is turned to a horrible meme. Have you instead joined in on a thread where banter has gone way too far? Laughing out loud, just part of the crowd, despite knowing that comments can star? Do you have a choice when using your voice? So it's time to make up your mind. Please make a note and remember this quote. In a world we can be anything, be kind. Okay, this one's about different religions. Have you got special ways and festival days which are different to others you know? Are there foods you can't eat, such as certain meat, because it's a sacred religious no-go? Do you wear different clothes from your head to your nose for reasons that matter to you? Are others aware when you say a prayer? It's just one of those things that you do. Do you sometimes confuse which language to use, depending on each conversation? Or in your point of view, faith's not for you, but you understand and you show toleration. So, at Diwali, at Eid, Yom Kippur, yes indeed, at Baisakhi, and on the day of the Buddha, and on Christmas Day, it's important to say we should love and respect one another. Okay, another little one from that series. This one's called Families. Have you got two mamas? Have you got two papas? Or do you happen to have one of each? Do you have a home with mother? Does your dad have another? But you get to go and see him every week. Or is it dependable dad who's back at your pad, making sure that you sleep and you eat? Is it your auntie, your grandma, your uncle, your grandpa, who's helping you find your own feet? Are you currently fostered? Have you been adopted? A new loving family of your own? Got brothers and sisters, mothers and misters? Or an only child who's happy alone? Do you need to be stronger because your mummy's no longer? Does your daddy look on from above? Well, all families are different, with one thing consistent: they're all held together by love. And as I said, we'll finish with something daft. These ones are about that most joyous of bodily functions. You'll see why. When a fart is spreading and everywhere it goes, people have to close their eyes and tightly hold their nose. And as the fart travels round the tables, chairs and doors, can you stop yourself from laughing when you know it's one of yours? There we go. Anyone who's ever read my first book will tell you that their favourite poem is actually this one. It took about 25 seconds to write. So that's a bit annoying. It's called Bubbles. I dare you not to giggle. I dare you not to laugh when your bottom trumps and makes bubbles in the bath. That's it. But we'll end with this one, which is my current favourite. And again, sticking in with that theme of bodily function, of joy. It's called Greatest. Have you let one go? Have you let one rip? Are you worried that your undies are chocolate chip? Have you caused a stink? Have you cut the cheese? Have you set one free in the breeze? Did your raspberry ripple? Did your bum pump? Did the sofa start shaking with the power of your trump? Did the air turn foggy? Did faces go green like wicked old witches on wicked Halloween? Was it silent but deadly? Was it tremendous and loud? Are you pleased with yourself? Are you feeling rather proud? Was your bottom burp ace? Was it a fine work of art? And in the history of wind, was it the greatest ever fart? Well, there we go. That's all from me. Sorry for lowering the tone. I'm sure Richard, who I'll hand back to now, will pick it up again. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed, Greg. That was wonderful. I too have a book out. You can either buy it by messaging me or going on Amazon worldwide or Barnes and Noble, all sorts of places. It's called Awakening, and it's by Stairwell Books of York. You can go on their website and buy it from them. Stairwell, as in sitting in a stairwell looking down the stairs. One of the books, which is one of my most requested poems, one of the poems in the book is Benefit Scrounger. Esme was a cleaner, a grafter, not well paid, became ill, could not breathe easily, went to a doctor, treatment did not help. Referred her to the chest clinic, all this time on sick leave. Lots of tests on vastly expensive machines, diagnosed by a specialist, a great man in his field, chronic obstructive airways disease. I went to see her to apply for DLA. I was warned to wait at the door. Took Esme 10 minutes to get there, holding onto the wall, slowly, gasping, moving, back to her chair, oxygen by her side. She used it all the time if she went out, which was rare. Her husband carried the cylinder, too heavy for her. DLA form submitted. Doctor from the benefits agency attended to assess. To her face, he called her a benefit scrounger. DLA refused. Statements from husband and GP ignored. Submitted the review with more statements, including the specialists, all supporting Esme. within my letter gave notice of appeal, stated that if the review failed, I would ambulance Esme to a tribunal on camera and, if possible, on TV. Review allowed, payment backdated. That was not important. Esme wanted to be believed. Esme was delighted. I complained about the doctor formally. To be retrained, they said. Not sacked. No apology. 10 months later, Esme, that woman who could not breathe, that benefit scrounger, died. The doctor, no doubt still earning his money on top of his GP wage for a bit of overtime. Now, who would you call a benefit scrounger? And it's a true story. And I worked at a CAB and then another little advice bureau. And when I decided to write that poem, I thought back over my cases. Obviously, I've changed names. And there were so many, I had to choose one. I could have carried on writing 200 poems, which would have been a bit boring, wouldn't it, by the time you got to the end of all that misery. But that's how disabled people are treated. And it's got worse. This was before austerity. So I think it's something that needs to be said. And one day during lockdown, which we've all been through, I woke up, and this, sometimes you have a poem in your head and it's almost there. And my mum died when I was 13. And I think one of her biggest worries was what was going to happen to us, because she died of cancer. So she obviously knew she was dying. This is to my mother. Hello, Mum. Oh, okay, you don't like Mum or Mother or Ma, so it's Mummy. Hello, Mummy. You have been gone now for 54 years, but we still think of you. You died at 50, so long ago. We're now the older generation. Judy died at 49, so she did not have as much time as you. Sue and Meg and I are now the old ones. Yes, I know they were Susan and Margaret, but things change. I am still Richard, but I've been Rick and Dick in my time. You had grandchildren, lots of them, and they had kids too. So now you are a great grandma, and we worry about the children like you worried about us. Now we live in a strange world, a world where a pandemic rules. And Mummy, we are frightened, angry, bewildered, scared. I woke up this morning and I had to write this to you. And it was, a very emotional thing. And I think so many of us, no matter how old we are, and I'm 69, so many of us, we're still talking to our no longer with us parents, and yes. So I was very fortunate to be asked to contribute to an anthology on world peace, and I was quite naughty and looked back in all my old documents and found 2 very suitable poems from a long time ago. And I sent them off and one was accepted, and that was really nice. And then I promptly forgot about it, as you do, because you hear about these things and you get the book about a year later, what then happened was I got a message saying, have a look at the Amazon poetry charts. And the anthology was #1 worldwide for 5 weeks. So that was quite amazing. It's not about me. It's not about the other 100 and odd poets. It's about peace, I think. So this is the poem that got into the #1 best-selling anthology in the world. Future Peace Pictured. Peace can come in images, both pale and bright, full of colour and diversity. Peace must come with surety. Hate must now truly be destroyed and inclusion flower and be deployed with strategies of universal, all-encompassing love and the expression of universal equality and hope from all around and spring anew as a dove. Then every afflicted or conflicted person can cope. Conflict is a tragedy. and can be no more. The triumph of peace must mean the end of war. Freedom can and will end hate. Genocide must totally abate. The dreadful destruction that mankind is capable of inflicting on itself must end. Bringing all together in harmony will be the aim of every person with reason. We must end global acrimony so that halcyon days will be in season forevermore. And to be honest, it's a lot more idealistic and hopeful than realistic. But I was really glad it was used in the anthology, and certainly the sentiments are completely worthy, if not likely to happen in any fast pace. I've got another thing going on that people can buy, and they can message me. It's a CD of my songs, but my poems turned into songs. And I've had two lovely quotes about it. One has called me the Hal David of Hull, who has found 14 Burt Bacharachs, which I thought was a lovely compliment. And then my oldest friend, by oldest I mean we longest standing, we're like brothers, and he was 10 and I was 11 when we started mating up. And he messaged me and said, well, I bought it because of you. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to listen to the thing and then tell him it's good. And he played it and he said, I can't believe the quality of it. It's wonderful. And why aren't these people stars? It must just be luck. Those that have hit records are lucky, because the people on your album are wonderful, and they are. So anyway, and it's all donated within Senior Pier Fund. We're nearly building a pier, and we sold 120 copies of it. So that's £1,200 towards the pier, because it's cost-free. So pretty pleased about that. Now this one is going to be turned into a song for Volume 2. And I've started bringing out my Halloween poems, because I've realised I never, ever used them. And this was inspired by Anne Bronte's Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And I was so lucky about 5 years ago to be asked to perform at the Bronte Parsonage Museum. And so I did my Anne Bronte poem. So that was amazing, standing there where she had stood. And this is called The Headless Ghost and the Wolves. In the midst of time when the land was wild and humans survived by their wits, wolves roamed freely around and attacked the weak, the young, the lost and wandering, the defenseless, the lonely folk. A woman, weary of her life, ran away from her husband cruel, and on the desolate moors and hills in Yorkshire got lost. She travelled far and slept in hay, in ditches, in caves as she could. Then one day wandering weak at night, fell and could move no more. A ravenous wolf found that dame and killed her ferociously. It tore at her neck and severed her head, had its fill and left her there. As she died, she cursed all wolves, her husband and his cruelty. Her soul found no rest and wandered the moor. Holding her head in her arms, she frightened away the weary, the travellers, and the lost. They saw her for centuries. Once seen, she remained in their dreams and troubled their waking hours. She watched her husband die in agony in his bed and saw his descent to hell. She had had no children and had cursed his name and knew that his line would die. So now she had to wander the hills, trying to gain vengeance on the wolves. She haunted those hills for centuries and was glad when the wolves died out. Now she could rest, and so she did. Perhaps she could now go to heaven, but maybe, just maybe, if mankind who had by the wolves been hunted so brought back the wolf into the wild from heaven, she would have to go and haunt the dark, gloomy moors again. So if the day comes when the wolves are back, beware of wandering in the dark on lonely moors in Yorkshire, still bleak, as the headless lady with curses aplenty will return. So that's my... Now, I'm going to finish this section with a parasitic poem. Now, when Richard Judd asked me if I would get involved with the festival, I naturally thought, well, it's up near Newcastle and here am I down near Hull. How did he hear about me? And he says, I saw a YouTube program and thought you were excellent. And I thought, well, how nice. And I thought, was it benefit Scrounger, that's the word. Was it benefit Scrounger? Was it my one about male breast cancer? Was it the one about Joe Cox dying? No, it was Captain Lara and Pirate Izzy, who are my granddaughters, Save the Easter Bunny. Now, Easter not quite appropriate for now, but I do actually have a new Pirate Izzy poem, which is, I think, probably the 7th. And so I thought I'd perform this. And it's Pirate Izzy and the Witch. So Pirate Izzy and Pirate Lara and silly old Grandpa too were sailing their famous galleon in a sea of blue, when a passing seal told them a tale of a captured princess they must rescue without fail. So they changed course and a new direction did sail, passing sharks, dolphins, and many a whale. They searched for many days, going in so many ways, until they found the place dark and vile, and in a short while had launched a surprise attack, expecting to soon be on their galleon back. But although they fought so brave, the raven-haired princess they could not save, and were soon overcome and had nowhere to run, and were locked up in a cage. Grandpa was in a rage. They were helpless, as was Princess Sue, who was locked in their cage too. She was so sad that they had been caught, and that their rescue plan had come to naught. But luck was on its way to them as it had been before and would be again, as Melinda, the fairy who had been a witch, who was in 17 poems, whose nastiness nearly ended up in a ditch, was on holiday in the Caribbean nearby and was gracefully flying in the sky. When she saw the imprisoned fall and cast her good spells once more, the evil captors were turned into fish. They could soon be eaten on a dish. Grandpa, the princess, and the girls were glad, thanked Melinda, and were not sad to say goodbye to the prison isle. And all the way home did party and smile. Melinda guided them home and made them promise that if they did roam, to call her in a special way if they were in trouble any day. And she would look after them always, being radiantly good for the rest of her days. And that's one of my many Pirate Izzy poems. And Melinda has inserted herself into so many. I think it's 17. Maybe I need a volume just about Melinda and her good deeds. You know, she is the reason we can't see unicorns. They were being so troubled and poisoned and attacked by mankind that she made them invisible. So they're not rare at all. They really do exist. And so now, over to Ray.
Okay. I kind of thought I'd done for the day, so I've kind of run out of what I had planned. Well, that's okay. I thought I was doing 2 10-minute slots, then Richard said a 20. So, anyway.
That's right, Ray. I can certainly save your blushes there and just have a quick couple of questions for both of you, really.
Oh, okay.
If that's all right.
That's absolutely fine.
Really enjoyed both of those sessions from you both, so thank you very much. And it's nice to get an updated pirate poem from Richard as well. So for each of you first, when did you write your first poem? Richard.
Sorry.
When did you write
I'm having a problem with my camera here. What do you say?
When did you write your first poem?
Pardon?
When did you write your first poem?
When did I write my first poem? Oh, sorry. Well, I wrote some songs about 20 years ago, lyrics for songs, but they weren't meant to be poems. I forgot about them, although I did find them again because they're still in the Word document. Then about 10 or 12 years ago, I was working for Leeds City Council, and we had a sort of not very good contractor we had hired out services to, and somebody sent me Wordsworth daffodils and asked me to turn it into awful doggerel because they thought I could, because I did a lot of the reports and writing. And people were saying it was hilarious. And then my boss, who was a lady, went to Paris and got engaged on the top of the Eiffel Tower. And I wrote a little verse about that for the card from the office. And I was getting, 20, 30, 40 texts and emails saying, these are funny. These are really very, very funny. So I thought, oh, I've got a little talent here. I didn't know I had. So I started writing these poems, and I didn't know why. And I was just building up a bank of poems. And my wife insisted that we go to a folk club. And I thought, oh, this is going to be boring. And people were doing some monologues. So I got up and did mine, and it went from there, really. I didn't know anything about an open mic scene or anything. And I was invited to an open mic, and from there to a club, and from there to the Freedom Festival. So 5 or 6 weeks after I'd stood on the stage doing a monologue, I was standing in a big marquee at the Freedom Festival, and it was just bizarre how it happened.
And Ray, what about you? When did you start writing poetry?
Similar to Richard in many ways. I started when I was in bands at university and tried writing lyrics and stuff like that, which were mostly drunken angst. But that's how you write when you're an angry teenager, I guess. But I've always kind of written stuff. I set out to be a novelist, but I haven't got the attention span, I'll be honest. And I kind of forget what my characters are called halfway through writing them. But I've always written stuff, mainly family occasions, I suppose. I wrote one for when my mum retired, and when my nan turned 80, I wrote one for her, and my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary. Recently, I wrote one for my sister. My sister turned 50 during lockdown 1 or maybe lockdown 2. I don't know. They all blend into one, don't they? Because I thought, well, I'm not going to get to read it to her. So what I did is I set out and I harvested out some of the lines, and it ended up with about 19 people involved in this poem.
Wow.
And I put a YouTube video together for them. Everyone just sort of popped up and said a funny line now and again, and it all almost, with a few exceptions, blended into one piece of work. So that was good fun.
Yeah, sounds good.
Writing for kids, seriously, maybe about 5 years.
Right.
In fact, the one about the alien, the one I started with today was probably the first one I wrote seriously for, let's see if I can sort of entertain some kids in some way. So yeah, about 5 years.
Well, Richard mentioned the Bronte gig. Apart from the Bronte Museum, where else have you performed, which is a little bit extraordinary?
Well, I'm deputy chair of an event called Withstock. So I perform at Withstock. I'm the master of ceremonies, which is at Withensea, and I appear on the Pier platform fairly regularly. In fact, I'm on there tomorrow morning. I've been up to Derwent Valley. I've been down into Derbyshire. I've been to Harrogate to the Royal Pump Room Museum, because 2 of my poems about homelessness were adapted into a play called Haunt, which was Sabater nominated. It didn't win, but it was nominated. And we performed it there and all over Harrogate. Because it was a very strange, innovative piece in that it was about historic homelessness, and we actually walked around Harrogate and performed the pieces where they had occurred.
Yeah.
So a few places really. Ripon. I've performed in Malta because when we were there for a holiday, I got quite well known in a local bar, and they actually gave me free drinks to come and do like 20 minutes or something between country singers and Elvis, so I'm international.
Well, there you go. Beat that, Ray.
I'm not even going to try. To be honest, I've not really performed outside of this room as a performance poet. I'm very new to all this. But I'll share a very quick story about my other past, which is I'm a harmonica player as well, and I've played in a number of bands. And I've reminded of this recently. Someone shared a photo online of a gig that we did in Blackpool, and reminded me that I actually started that morning in Norfolk, and I actually drove coast to coast by mistake. Didn't really realise what I was doing. But I started off the morning having a walk on a beach in a place called Waxham on the Norfolk coast. Beautiful place. You ever go there? And it was only when I sort of drove up the prom, as it were, and saw the tower and thought, hang on, I've done a bit of a Top Gear thing here. I've gone coast to coast just to go and play a gig in a venue over in Blackpool. So that was quite weird. That was quite a weird one. So that's about as close I can come to matching anything of Richard's CV.
And what about poets that have actually inspired you? So who inspires you?
Poems that have inspired you.
By other poets. Well, I love John Donne. Death be not proud, though thou hast called thee mighty and dreadful, yet thou art not so. I find him very moving. And I also, on a completely different spectrum, find Sir John Betjeman totally amazing. And I wish I could write anything that was meant to be humorous that was 1% as funny as some of his stuff. So I think if I had to just name two poets that totally inspired me, modern ones, people like Holly McNeish and, of course, Ray Douglas.
That's very kind of you to say that. I'm sure Ray is now blushing away there.
No, I'm getting all emotional. Anyone but Richard Harris. No, I'm joking. For me, I mean, I do like the comedy side of stuff. So I guess I know Roald Dahl. Since I was a kid, I've always been reading Roald Dahl, Pam Ayres, John Cooper Clarke. There's a guy called, he's not very big over here, but a guy called Shel Silverstein. And someone borrowed me his book about 6 years ago. And what he does is he writes a very short poem and he'll put like just one illustration with it. And I kind of stole that idea. That's basically what I did. That was what sort of made me think, you know what, I could actually do this. I can draw quite well. I'm not fantastic, and some examples behind me. But I just thought, I could probably do that, write a short poem and put a little picture with it and tie the two together. Yeah, so it was a massive influence on me, as I say. It's a shame he's not so big over here. He's massive in the States. He really is.
Right. I think that's about it for questions. Chaps, have you got any questions for me?
What's your favourite pizza topping? I don't know.
Well, I do like meat and mushrooms and that sort of thing on anything you can get on there, really. Yeah. No, it's been a pleasure to have both of you be part of this session this afternoon. I hope you both enjoyed it. And I hope we can repeat this at some point, but actually in person, once life gets back to whatever the new normal is. I think there's a poem in that as well, I think, isn't there? Because I don't think we're going to be going back to how life was. I think we've all got to live with whatever the new normal means to each of us, really. But no, it's been a pleasure to have both of you on this afternoon. So I think we will say thank you very much. It will be kept on YouTube for people to catch up with us for wherever they are. And we'll add some links on there for your books and things like that, and your YouTube pages and so forth. And again, your open invitation to both of you to post onto my Facebook groups as and when you want to. And that's what we're here for, is to promote and thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you,
Peter, but he's kept it
Peter, and to Richard.
Super.